Conversations from the Cave is a raw self-help podcast dedicated to discussing men's issues. From pornography to parenting, from religion to real life, from learning to loving. We discuss the real issues that affect real men every day. Join us each week for powerful, revealing Conversations from the Cave. Now your host, Kurt Kennedy.
Well, we are live here at Arby's, the Meet and Greet Conversations from the Cave edition, the live edition. I am joined with the cool Conversations from the Cave crew. To my right this time, Nola73. Can you give us a shout out, sir?
Yes, this is Nola73. Meet you where you at.
And, of course, right across from me, Mustang.
Food was good today, man. I'm excited to be here for the food. I was kidding.
So today's topic is going to be a kind of a unique one for us. We don't typically talk a lot about religion. And because we don't talk about religion, it's kind of interesting, but actually we're sort of navigating the table because it's rocking on us. Okay. We're dealing with the issue of where are our sinner friends? In my profile on social media, I have a variety of different types of people, including Satanists. And some people have, as you know, some religious folks have said, why do you have Satanists in your thing? They're going to be putting crud in your news feed.
Why don't you? Is my question.
Is there anything wrong with having Satanists and agnostics and atheists in your news feed or in your friends list? How do we deal with it? And what is it that we're supposed to do about it? Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. So, gentlemen, we'll be right back after these short messages.
The Conversations from the Cave show is brought to you by the Alabama Cornea Care Center, Northern Alabama's first irregular cornea and scleral lens referral center. The Alabama Cornea Care Center is dedicated to the management of complex irregular cornea cases, providing hope and compassionate care for patients suffering with keratoconus, refractive surgery complications, and degenerative eye diseases. Call 256-937-1213 or visit alabamacorneacare.com for more details. Now, back to the Man Cave with Kurt Kennedy and the CRTC crew.
So, Mustang.
Yeah.
Tell me, man, do you have any Satanists and agnostics in your newsfeed, and why you got them in there, man?
Yeah. Funny you say that. I actually, and this I think it'll be stable, I think. Funny you say that. Yeah, I have a good deal. And it's funny because I've only acquired them over the past couple of years. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I never had any interest in really hanging out with them or anything like that. And, because they're bad.
Supposedly, right?
They're evil.
They're evil.
They're evil people. And so, long story short, I started reading my kids a couple of years ago and started reading them every night. Me and the wife did. And things started changing. God started moving. Jesus started moving in our hearts and our lives. And that being said, I started feeling a need to start talking to people. I remember people saying Satanist, friends and stuff like that back when I was gaming and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I remember adding one, particular one, and her and I are now good friends. We definitely still see things on opposite sides of the spectrum, but I show her love, period, regardless. It doesn't matter what's going on. She sees love. And I remember one time she had a situation that occurred where a guy called her an inappropriate word in the checkout line. And she called me. She said, "Chris, I thought about you." And she said, "I thought about what you were talking about, that maybe he was just having a bad day. Maybe he was just, whatever." She said some other stuff, but, and she said, "So I thought, maybe he's just having a bad day." Now, she's not like a Christian or anything.
Right.
But it gave her pause,
Right.
And those are the friends that we're supposed to be having. If all of our friends are
just have the same ideology we have,
then where would they find Jesus? They found Jesus, going to tax collectors' houses, and they found Jesus hanging out with the
Wine
prostitutes
bibbers,
and the boozers and all those people, you know. And I feel like a lot of the times we just kind of sit in our own little box and, I'll try not to curse. I'll try to say my prayers every day, and I'll try to make sure that I'm, this, that, and the other, and then I'll be ushered on into heaven. And
Right.
I just don't think that that's necessarily the relationship that Jesus is looking for.
Right, and I also think there's a lot to... Sometimes, how can you have any influence if you're never in the circle where people need, need to be communicated with? So, suppose that there's someone who's an agnostic. How in the world would they see something different if they never had any chance to interact with you?
Yeah.
And if you don't care about them, people really don't care what you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And you got to start there, because I think a lot of times we don't even consider relationships with people who don't believe as we do, like birds of a feather flocking together.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you kind of go outside your comfort zone, it gives you a lot of opportunities to begin having a positive influence, even if you don't agree with everything that somebody else is thinking, doing, or saying. And that's a good point that you make. We have to sometimes step out of our comfort zone and do that.
Yeah.
Nola, what's your thought, man? Even if it's on social media, just dealing with people,
One of the things I would say, I have a lot of friends that I allow to be themselves. When I used to work at Boeing, I noticed a lot of my friends was just people of the world, and I accepted them just who they was. What was funny about those friends is that God allowed me to see how they would respect me being a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So
even though they didn't agree or necessarily believe as you believe.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, what made me laugh is how he would allow them, when they are together, they just talk all kind of jargon, like normal guys would talk.
Mm-hmm.
But when I would walk around, they clean it up.
Yep.
The cussing would stop, the talking dirty
And
about.
you didn't say a word.
And I didn't say a word. And so I saw the influence that God placed on me and them.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of people that say, nah, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't hang with people like that because they can pull you into the world. And true if you're weak, but if you're feeding yourself every day with the word, with positive influence, then your influence will also influence other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that I've learned. I heard Ken say just a few minutes ago, there's an old saying, birds of a feather flock together. And one of the things that I hated about that slogan or that saying, how can you say that me hanging out with somebody that's doing dirt, I'm now going to do the same thing he's going to do? You don't have faith in me. And so when you show people, or when you say stuff like that, you basically telling the person that you're saying that to, that you're going to end up like that person that's doing evil.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think also too, there's two different hangout, so to speak. There's the hangout and they're spending time with. If your friends are drinking and smoking and they're like, hey, come drink and smoke with us, and you're like, yeah, sure, I'll come drink and smoke with you guys, or I'll come do this while you guys are doing it. I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm not going to be an influence at all. I'm actually just doing it for the camaraderie. That's one thing. But if you're going there with intention of, let whatever light I've got shine, and I'm going to let you guys be you, and eventually you will see, or you'll get to that point where all your friends abandon you, and I'll be the one here ready to help you. You'll get to that point where you'll see, what's going on. And the second thing, I noticed that when, like you said, birds of a feather flock together, and Kirk was saying birds of a feather flock together, it's funny, we're giving the rest of us, that's what people think.
Right.
But yeah, people thinking. I've noticed that I actually have typically two enemies. Typically the person who, or I'm going against two sides almost, the person who doesn't believe in God, and then the person who knows for a fact that they believe in God. Both of those people are typically against me. One saying, why would you hang out with them? And the other one saying, I don't believe in your God, he's nothing, et cetera, where I'm sitting in the middle saying, first of all, I love you with all my heart, and I care about you. And then the other one, why would you dismiss them? Simply, you were just like this 2 years ago, 5 years ago, yesterday, you still are, whatever the case is. So, I typically feel like, we we actually are more isolated when you truly plug into Jesus and he begins, pouring into you, and you start to see things through his eyes. You really begin to change, and people begin to draw away from you.
You're listening to the Conversations from the Cave Show with host Kurt Kennedy and the CFTC crew. CFTC is available for digital download on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Spreaker.com. Want your church or men's group to host a CFTC Live Man Up conference? Contact the crew on Facebook or visit provoxmediagroup.com/manup2018. Now, back to the Man Cave with Kurt Kennedy and the CFTC crew.
You make a really good point. A couple of things that I think were first kind of profound is that you have to first of all get out of that crew to be able to start embracing people that don't think like you. Mm-hmm. And then you also have to recognize where you're grounded. Because if you, and you used a word, we have to love people. And truthfully, it's the love that people can sense that after a while. You really do, in fact, actually care about people. Even if you're not you don't have to get into their ritual seances. You don't have to go to a seance to be able to say, that's a nice picture. If you see somebody on Facebook, that's a nice picture of you and whatever. If you go, this is cool artwork that you've done. Mm-hmm. Find something that you can appreciate.
Yes.
There's always something good about someone that you can say something positive about, just as on a human level. It doesn't have to be you're proselytizing or evangelizing somebody. And then the second thing that I think is important is just being compassionate. Because I think sometimes in all the holiness, we lose the whole component of compassion. I mean, there are people who are suffering. I think about, I've got quite a few Satanists in my newsfeed, and some of them, they've been abused.
Yeah.
For a fact that they've been abused
I've
because
had some
of many of the things that they're actually talking about in their newsfeed are the response to physical abuse. Mm-hmm. Guys being abused respond differently than women who have been abused. But you see some of these things in the news feeds, and you think, wow, there's so much pain. It's masked in fetishes. It's masked in makeup. It's masked in all kinds of these crazy clothing and all these other kind of stuff. But at the end of it, it still says pain. It's just written pain and sadness is over all those pictures. And so when you see something like that, and your heart should, even if they're not agreeing with your ideology, your heart should go in the direction of people who are suffering and who are hurting. Because you know what? It's powerful to think that those might be some people who, because you have been kind, compassionate, and warm and affectionate to them, that might end up being with you when something bad in your life happens.
Yes.
And here's the thing. What blew my mind is when I went through a tremendous...
I already know what you're about to say.
I went through a big situation.
Yeah.
And it turns out that none of my believer friends...
He put air quotations, just FYI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of my believer friends were there.
Mm-hmm.
I went through all of that with non-believer friends helping me move, helping me relocate, helping me put stuff where it needed to be, listening to my, issues, willing to take time to talk with me. It was those people who didn't flee in the midst of my circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas my church friends, or my church buddies, all of that, those folks were nowhere to be found.
They was at the barbecues, and they was at
they were at everything else, but they weren't there helping me move.
Yeah.
They weren't there helping me through my difficulty.
Through your time. And I want to say this too, that I believe...
Not all.
No, and I know, but the fingerprint of God is on every single person. Every single person. That's why we have that. Yeah, whether you believe it or not, that's why we have this objective moral standard. But that being said, the fingerprint of God on every person. When you have someone that's an atheist and they're coming to you and they're saying, "Hey, Chris. Hey, hey, Bob. Hey, Jimmy. I love you. I care about you." That is
A represent-
demonstration,
of
yes,
God,
of
yeah.
that, and so that lets you know this person is worth loving. This person is just as